Islam. I'm glad you could make it, Brother Watt.
Again, thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, and what we're doing today, we're going over a Quran questionnaire that we have. Basically, what we do every Friday and Sunday, we go over our Holy Quran, which is like our holy book and our laws, our Constitution. We go over these things and explain it and basically answer questions to make sure that we all have a thorough understanding of how our society works, how our laws work, how we govern ourselves. And it's for us, it's very important so that we have a thorough understanding of where our power is, where our power lies, and how we are to conduct and um, govern our own society, and basically to reconnect ourselves to the civilized nations of the world, because that's one of the things that was done to our ancestors. Our ancestors were deemed savages. We were given Christianity, and we were still left outside of the fold of humanity. We were placed in a label that was created to keep us in a servile position where we're still at today. Even though it's time, it's time for us to rise up. That's what everything is saying. Um, Even in the mainstream media, they've been saying for the last 2 years that our 400 years were up. They said that in 2019, and they're all referring to Acts 6, Acts 7:6 in the Bible, referring to us being in bondage for 400 years. So it's time, and we're still suffering because we don't know who we are. We're still operating under something that was created just to abuse and take advantage of us. So it's time for us to step outside of that and step into our own fold. And that's what we're re-educating ourselves into. Okay, we're going to go ahead and open up. All meetings are to be opened and closed promptly according to the Circle 7 in love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Everyone, please rise and face the east for the Moorish American prayer. Read it out loud. You have to say it out loud.
Allah, the Father of the universe, Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Amen.
Amen. All right, I want to announce that the meeting is now open. First and foremost, we always rise. We give the highest praise to the Most High, the Father of the universe, Allah. We give honors to our divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali, for bringing us our divine creed and nationality so that we may learn to love instead of hate. We also give honors to the forerunner to the prophet, Brother Marcus Mosiah Garvey. We give honors to all the Adep sheiks and all the faithful Moors that make up the grand body of the Moorish Divine and National Movement. We give honors to the first appointed Supreme Grand Sheikh by the Prophet, Brother E. Millie Ill. Honors to our current Supreme Grand Sheikh, Brother K. Dandridgeo. We also give honors to the Grand Council of the Moorish Science Temple of America, and honors to all the ills and bays on this call: Islamism. Now, Brother Jackson Bey, would you please read the Divine Constitution and Bylaws?
Praise Allah. I rise giving perfect praise to Allah and honors to the Prophet. Noble Drew Ali, honors to you Muslims. Salvation, Allah, unity. The Moorish Science Temple of America. The Divine Constitution and Bylaws. Act 1. The Grand Sheikh and Chairman of the Moorish Science Temple of America is empowered to make law and enforce law with the assistance of the Prophet and the Grand Body of the Moorish Science Temple of America. The Assistant Grand Sheikh is to assist the Grand Sheikh in all affairs if he lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and it is known before the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Act 2. All meetings are to be open and closed promptly according to the Circle 7 in love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Friday is our holy day of rest, because on a Friday the first man was formed in flesh, and on a Friday the first man departed out of flesh and ascended unto his Father God Allah. For that cause, Friday is the holy day for all Muslims all over the world. Act 3. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice must be proclaimed and practiced by all members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. No member is to put in danger or accuse falsely his brother or sister on any occasion at all that may harm his brother or sister, because Allah is love. Act 4. All members must preserve these holy and divine laws, and all members must obey the laws of the government, because by being a Moorish American, you are part and parcel of the government and must live the life accordingly. Act 5. This organization of the Moorish Science Temple of America is not to cause any confusion or to overthrow the laws and constitution of the said government, but to obey hereby. Act 6. With us, all members must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are part and parcel of this said government, and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now, and all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained Noble Jew Ali, the prophet, to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Act 7. All members must promptly attend their meetings and become part and parcel of all uplifting acts of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Members must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Then you are entitled to the name of faithful. Husband, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband and take care of the children. Take care of your children and look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey father and mother and be industrious and become part of the uplifting of fallen humanity. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure with love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant is from your holy prophet, Noble Jew Ali, through the guidance of his Father God Allah. Noble Jew Ali, founder, Moorish American Prayer, Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Jew Ali. Amen. The Moorish Science Temple of America, home office of Noble Jew Ali, home office, Chicago, Illinois, USA. Islam, Islam, Islamism.
All right, thank you, brother. Islamism. Okay, so we're gonna go into the Quran today, and we finished up last time, so we're right back to the beginning, and just before we talk about questions 1 through 10, just looking at that front cover, and I'm just gonna read some of this commentary on the Quran questionnaire. All right, on the cover, you see Prophet Noble Drew Ali holding humanity. And we want to look at what this means. Okay, the picture, this image of the Prophet lifting humanity out of the cares of the world and onto the solid rock of foundation. You can just off of that image, that's speaking about the significance, of course, of the prophet and his holy mission to the lost souls of humanity. And this picture pretty much is something that we've seen throughout ancient American culture as well. We've seen that with the ancient Aztecs. They have that same symbolism, right? With like an Aztec chief or someone with the headdress with the feathers, and they're lifting a female up in the same manner with one foot on a rock. Okay, So this is actually ancient. This is ancient, and the picture literally does speak 1,000 words. So the symbolism is ancient, and with the prophet doing this, okay, the prophet tells us that a prophet, excuse me, is a thought of Allah manifested in human flesh, and he was the one who's inspired by God. His duty is to save nations from the wrath of
5 minutes
Allah.
make 5 meat.
Islam. All right. So his mission was to save nations from the wrath of Allah. That's what the prophet's duty is. And he's the one who Allah revealed his secrets and who could not resist speaking, but only what he had received from Allah. So this is why we study the prophet's words and we hold it as law, because he's unable to resist speaking the revelations from Allah. So these aren't just his ideas and thoughts and words. Excuse me. So he came, of course, to warn us of our own wicked ways, which is why we're suffering, right? We're not even blaming our condition on anything outside of us, because one of the first things you learn in the beginning of the Quran is that Allah is within us. We're connected. We're one with God, Allah and man. So we create our own reality. So he led the way to the true religion, which is Islamism, which is basically making living at peace, at oneness with the universe, a way of life. All right. And he gave us the tools to lift us out of the cares of the world. And you see with the crown on his head, the fez, that's our national headdress. And this is universal. It symbolizes the consciousness of the great God Allah. And it represents the union of religion and science, the coming together of earthly and divine knowledge. And that's in the fez. And that's also the symbol of the builder, he who builds for his earthly and divine salvation. And then the tassel, symbolic of the plumb line, and that represents upright character. The robe, everything that he's got on. So even the robe symbolizes a regenerated and spiritualized nature, woven from the threads of his own noble character and virtue. And then you see the woman is lying like limp in the arms of the prophet. And many people just look at that on on face value and just see that as a woman. But this is of course it says humanity on it, right? And so people will say, oh, okay, we need to lift up the women. And it's not to say that we aren't, all right? But there's more to it than that, right? So to look at this properly, or to decode that properly, right? The woman as a whole represents humanity, right? And then she's unconscious, just left at the mercy of outside influences, the cares of the world. That means that she's unenlightened, or humanity, unenlightened, ignorant, non-resistant, inactive, and limp in sin. And in many ways, this is how our community is, unable to even do anything about the things that are afflicting us, right? We've been marching, we've been protesting, we've been doing things like this for a long time. A lot of people are aware of the hypocrisy, that how ridiculous it is that we're still having to go through these things. And there's nothing anyone can do about it, right? So this is what is symbolized in that. When you see this figure that's just limp like that, unable, unresponsive, can't do anything about it. So the prophet came to lift us out of the cares of the world and to place us on the solid rock of salvation so that we can save ourselves. Okay, so that is fallen humanity. It's not just lifting up our women. That's a part of it, of course. But it's not, no, this is fallen humanity, period. All of us. This is how the community is as a whole. All right. And then it starts with us because we're the original people. And just wanted to speak on that really quickly. We're going to go ahead and go into questions 1 through 10. and then we can build on them. And if anyone has any questions, we can discuss that. So, Brother Lawsonell, if you have the Quran questionnaire, could you please read those questions and answers? Also, well, if you have anything you want to build on the questions as well, if you could expound on them. And we're just doing questions 1 through 10 in the questionnaire. Islam, I'm not sure if Brother Lawsonell heard me. Are you there, brother?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Islam.
All right. Islam.
I rise and give praise to the Prophet and all Moors on the call. Islam, brothers and sisters. Question 1, who made Allah? And just to add a little commentary, I would read this. To know that Allah made mankind negates the theory of man's physical evolution in these contemporary times. As you know, that we were taught as young people in school the theory of Darwin and evolution, which we know better now that we're more educated, that this could not be a lower life then evolve to a higher life. It's just too complex of a form of life that Allah has created. So I just wanted to add that to the first question. Douglas L., you may have more knowledge than I. Islam. Anyone else?
Islam. One thing, if I could add to that, just from my take on that, just asking who made you, Allah. This
Exactly.
is reconnecting us to our divine nature. As African Americans, as Black people, who made us? The European. And you know why? Because those things don't exist. They created the Negro category for us in like the 1600s, and they got more of us to take on that category in the 1700s, and then they renamed us colored because Negro was starting to, I guess, lose its validity within us. So we actually were calling ourselves colored, and we didn't see anything wrong with that. And at that time, a lot of our people didn't like being called Black. They saw it as an insult, right? And when they saw the time fit, because these people were actually always trying to stay ahead of the curve, once they saw that maybe, we can only use this name for like one generation, maybe 20 years, they started to try to get us to take on the name Black. And we're actually calling ourselves Black in this day and age. And that was something that even as late as the 60s, a lot of our people they still didn't like being called Black. Definitely in the 50s. And so, now we're going along with it. We don't see anything wrong with it, Black, African American, but none of these things, even though there were people that looked like us who bought into it, who saw it as something that we could all unify under, we didn't create it. So whatever you name, you own it. You take ownership of it. Okay? So when they're saying who made you, this is reconnecting us to our divine nature, because even though we've been going to by these names that were these labels that were built to keep us in confusion, to keep us asleep, they were like secret code words that were built to keep us asleep. And if you look into this thing called gematria, which is like basically understanding the science of numbers, connecting it with the Kabbalah, and looking at basically how every number, or excuse me, every letter, every word, every letter, excuse me, has a number assigned to it. And when you look at this, you look at the words Negro. Negro, I think, is the number for Negro is, I think, 42. It's either 42 or 59. I can't remember. But I know that Negro and slave both have the same number. They carry the same vibration with it. And so does black. And so these things were done for a reason. There are spells, literally spells. Okay? And so that's who made you. And the prophet is reconnecting us to our divine nature. Allah created us. We predate that. We predate slavery, which is also where they start us off at, right? In history. Don't they start us off as slavery?
Islam, 1600s.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah. I mean, that's where Black history starts.
Islam, brother. And the confusion is still out there with this Black Lives Matter label.
Yeah.
And people are buying into that. Again, it shows how easily our people are swayed. So in the 70s and the 60s, no one wanted to be black. Now Black Lives Matter, which doesn't really exist. There's no black people, because like you said, that's a creation of the colonist. And most people still have colonization in their minds, and they have to get rid of that. But this is just another psyop with this Black Lives Matter thing that is just crazy. It's everywhere, and Europeans got it in their lawn. And, I was riding home today, and I like to pull up in someone's yard and just ask them what that means, and have a serious conversation, because it's just another psyop to confuse our folks. Islam,
that's true. And I see Brother Shawbay has his hand up. Please speak up, brother. The floor is open.
Islam. First of all, I rise and give praises to Allah. Thank you to all you more. I was just researching the Corporation Act 1661. Is that relative to what Brother Lawson L was saying? Islam.
Corporation Act 1661.
Can you explain that a little further?
Yeah.
Islam.
What that act is about?
Yes, it's defined as Corporation Act of 1661 was an act of the Parliament of England. It belonged to the general category of test acts designed for the express purpose of restricting public offices in England to members of the Church of England. I was researching that because, I don't know, something just tied it to like just the word corporation. You know what I mean? And how they say that being in the U.S. jurisdiction, you're basically a corporate entity and not like known as a human being if you're classified so-called Black or African American. Islam.
That's on point. I think what it sounds like what you're saying that's saying that all people who hold public office have to be members of the clergy. That makes me think of like how in Britain they have a Minister of Defense, Ministry of Finance, like all of these different I guess you could say lawmaking positions. They all are under some type of ministry.
Islam, if I may add to that. Well, first and foremost, I rise and give praise to Allah, honors to His Prophet Noble Drew Ali, honors to all you Moors in attendance. Well, religion is the law of the land. Okay, so all of our laws is based on religion, and that's why you cannot touch a man's religion. There's a separation of church and state. So that reminds me of what Prophet Noble Drew Ali did, where he brought us into our own society within a society, our own nation state, our own body politic, and it is a religious corporation because we have rights and freedoms and protection under this divine and national movement, Islam.
Islam.
Wow.
So I guess my next question would be, is this something that we would be able to kind of explain if we were, in a situation where we had to explain, or, just to kind of get clear of who we are, Islam, like who we are.
Islam, definitely. And that's why we do this, to go over our laws, of course, our holy book, so that we understand how our society works, and then also to go over our structure, how our government is established. Like we do have we do have a religious government. We have a theocratic constitutional monarchy. Theocratic meaning of God. We have the Constitution, which was read earlier, and then a monarchy because our leaders are appointed, not voted for, appointed, anointed, and consecrated. All right, so our sheiks are actually members of the government, right? Our adepts, our sheiks, and our divine ministers. And then that's what we're just saying about in Britain, they have a minister of defense and all these things. So all of the offices and things that we would see fit they would fit into our structure that way. We have an Islamic nation state. We just need to get more people to come in. All right, but we have the structure.
Islamism.
And then two, that's what we also do on the business calls where we're going over the orientation manual. So it's, any questions you have, ask them, especially Thursday too, because we're going over the structure. And then two, you have the manual as well. You could look that up. Any questions you have or anything, just let me know. And, we could build on it. If anything jumps out to you, it's in there. All right, but well, real quick, I'll just explain it. That with the actual government structure, at the local level, like where we're at, we have a temple. The leadership here would be part of the grand body. We'll have a grand sheik, and then while each temple may not have a grand governor, there's a grand governor. Should be one in every state. May not be one in every state. May have one like for Ohio that is over maybe 2-3 states, but there should be one in each state. And then you should have grand sheik and an assistant grand sheik at every temple. And they're empowered, as you see in the first act of the Quran, to make and enforce law. And who makes and enforces law? The legislative body within the United States government makes and enforces law, and that would be the Congress, the Senate, the House of Representatives. Right? Doesn't each state have congressmen? Several congressmen. In your district, they all have congressmen, and then each state has a couple of senators and governors, and they all make the laws at the state level. Then they congregate together, and they also work on laws at the federal level too for the whole nation, right? And so we have that with the grand body. And then there's the United States has a Supreme Court. We have the Supreme Grand Council, and they interpret the laws to make sure they're within the bounds of our laws, of our structure, right? They're going to be using the Holy Quran, our laws from the Prophet, to interpret and make sure that everything's within the bounds of righteousness. And then there's the executive level, or the executive office, which is like the president, which is where the Supreme Grand Sheik is. And so you have checks and balances with this, because like the Supreme Grand Council or the Supreme Grand Sheik isn't supposed to be trying to make laws and trying to like run everything, because that's not even their job. They each have their own purpose. And then one of the reasons that it's set up like that would be because even the structure of the United States of America is ours. This was based off of what our ancestors created. We've talked about this in previous classes, right? Where we talked about how the Constitution was based off of what our ancestors created here, which is called the Great Law of Peace. The Iroquois Federation had the Great Law of Peace. And this is not hearsay. This is not, this is not something that I thought of. This is what you can actually research for yourself and see. The Europeans documented that they based the Constitution off of the Great Law of Peace, which is Islam. Islam means peace, the Great Law of Islam, the Great Law of Peace. And that was what our ancestors made here, right? And then we talked about too, how when the Europeans were coming over here, specifically from Ireland, when they were coming up in the East Coast, they were going to Tammany Hall to learn civics, to learn how to be American citizens. And we talked about how Chief Tammany was one of the Delaware Indians. Think Lenape, all right? These Indians were known as Moors, the Delaware Moors, okay? And he was one of the ones who interacted with William Penn, and he named him, just like the European named us. They gave him an indigenous name, which is kind of like adopting him into their culture. So we adopted them into ours and taught them how our society was ran. So this whole structure with having representatives that represent the people, that make laws for the people, that was ours. They were coming from a system where they were serfs, where they were just basically slaves. They were peasants. And there were, a couple of lords, a couple of nobles who owned the land, and everyone was underneath them. They were being ran over by tyrants. And they came over here and they saw something greater and they wanted a part of it. So the United States of America, that's why we have the US flag here. I think Brother Taharka Bey was just saying this earlier. That's why we honor the United States of America flag. We don't call it the commerce banner, which you'll hear a lot of other people say. We don't call it that. We don't give away credit. We know that it's ours. We know that the red, white, and blue is ours. We know that's the Red Sea, the white, and the blue Nile. That it's based off of our science. We know that this is our nation. We know that when the prophet gives honors to the U.S. Constitution as one of the greatest documents ever created, he's really paying homage to our ancestors because it was based off of us. Okay, and so, there's no shame in being American citizens. That's where our power is. And ultimately, this is our nation. This is all ours. We just got tricked out of it. We got tricked into a spot where we were on the outside looking in. And now we're coming back into the fold because that was our destiny, is to rule all of this.
Islam. Can I add something to that, brother? In the Bible, there's a story about Jacob and Esau, who was two brothers, right? And their father, he was a blind man, so he just knew how each of his sons felt, right? He didn't see what they looked like. So one of the brothers was supposed to, when the father passed away, he was supposed to take leadership. So the other brother was jealous, and he wanted that position. So what he did was, his brother, one was smooth and one was hairy. So what he did was he put on the fur, the hair, so that he could feel like his brother. So when he went to his father thought it was him. So I don't want to go all the way into that story, but that's what put me in the mind, what you was just saying. It reminded me of that story, one brother tricked the other, the father, into taking the leadership because the feeling gets the blessing. Islam?
Islam, and you can see that in some of the things that are being carried out by the people in leadership. They're in a way imitating the Moors so that they can sit in that spot, right? The seat of power is at the White House. We say this all the time. The White House is Casablanca. That means White House, Casablanca. And Casablanca is, of course, the capital of Morocco. And that's us. And most of the people in those positions are Shriners, not knocking a shrine or Freemasonry or any of that, but they do wear our headdress in secret for the most part because they have rules where they're not allowed to just wear it unless they're at a Shriner convention or a Shriner event. And they have to do this, okay? Because they're sitting in our seat. This is our government. Not only this structure that we have within the Moorish Science Temple of America, but all of this is ours. All right. But we have to come in steps. We have to wake up into who we are and be who we truly are, which is what we're doing, teaching us how to be civilized. All right. We almost have to learn how to be civilized again and to come into our true nature, which is that first question again. Who made you? Allah, the creator of the universe. The very next question. We have a divine nature. Okay, so we predate Negro, we predate the 1700s and slavery and all of that. Islam, I yield the floor.
Islam. I just wanted to say one thing from Moorish Science, Temple of American Moorish Literature. The Prophet has spoken. The first two lines says, all governors and grand sheiks and head officials that guide anybody of Moors, of any temple of the Moorish Science Temple of America, he or she must be of good moral standard and a heart of love, and their works must be love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I just want to point that out as far as like the way that, our system works is truly, well, not system, but, the way that our grand body politic works is, is based off of what we've always had, Islam.
All right, Islam. Brother Lawson, I think we left off at question 2.
Right. Who is Allah? Allah is the father of the universe. Anyone want to comment?
Islam, if I may. When we talk about Allah, and a lot of people get caught up in, femininity and masculinity. A lot of, like, I hear a lot of sisters, like, get angry, saying, like, why is Allah a man? But
Islam.
when we look at this here, the father, it doesn't necessarily mean, the male gender, because when we're dealing with Allah, we're dealing with perfect balance, polarity, and, it's that there's no one without the other, Islam. So when we say Allah is the father of the universe, we mean Allah, that's just for our simple understanding, when we're talking to regular people. But as members of the Moorish Science Temple of America, we know that there's a deeper meaning behind that, Islam.
Islam, yeah, to add to that, just reading from these commentaries on a Quran questionnaire, I was just speaking on how we just comprehend Allah the only way we can through our human experience, and we come to understand different aspects of him based on how we perceive ourselves. For instance, consider the male gender to be dominant, active, forceful, and protective. So Perceiving that Allah possesses these same qualities, we often refer to him using masculine pronouns. So just as the sister said, Allah is all encompassing, so it wouldn't be male or female.
Islam. And Allah is a nurturer, also a protector. So, nurturing is usually a female role, as we have learned in our society here, and also protector is a male role. So, it's not that, the father, the masculine, the dominant person, based on European conditioning. So there's a balance there. The traits are male and female, and no one has seen Allah. I think that's coming to the next question. So we don't know exactly what Allah looks like, but we know it's all powerful, all knowing, and created the universe. So there's a balance there. So we as Moors understand that, but the general population have a hard time dealing with that because of the social engineering what a father is, Islam.
Islam
Islamism.
also came back off everybody saying of drawing that conclusion on why Allah got to be a man. Well, from our perspective, if Allah is man or masculine, well, we also in the Moral Science Temple America, we believe that the soul's feminine, and the soul is the higher self in Allah. No, the higher self, Allah, and Allah, the higher self is Allah in man. So like that's another way we could explain the dualism on how we see things, Islam, or if I'm wrong, correct me.
Islam. To add on to that, the word woman has man in it. So in order for us to come through the womb is, only by a woman. So in that case, I would say humankind is another way to, speak about what the the entire makeup or, procreation of mankind is, or womankind is, Islam.
Islam. Question 3. Can we see him? No. I just commented on that. Allah cannot be seen with physical eyes for the simple fact that his being does not meet the conditions of things that are seen. In essence, Allah is in us, we exhibit powers of Allah, but you can't see it physically. Islam?
Islam, the physical world is limited. The physical existence, these are things like that will pass away, and Allah cannot pass away. So it's not going to be limited to the physical, having a body and just the different things that we perceive as from the physical realm. Because all these things pass away at one point in time. They're all limited.
Islam. It's like we can't see him, but we can see aspects of Allah all around us. Islam.
Islam. Question 4. Where is the nearest place we can meet him? In the heart. So we know we can't physically see, we can see aspects, we can see results of the Creator, but we can feel them in the heart. The so-called instinct or gut feeling that a lot of people say. That's Allah talking to you. You want to turn right, that gut feeling, that Allah feeling said you should have turned left. Now you're lost. Islam? Question 5. Who is Noble Drew Ali? He is Allah's prophet. He is the messenger of Allah. Islam? Islam, anybody there?
Islam, we're still here.
Peace and love.
Okay. I just read question 5. Any comments? That Noble Drew Ali is Allah's prophet?
Islam. No, Prophet Noble Drew Ali came to our people here in the Americas speaking our language so that we can understand him. A lot of people have problems with us having a prophet, us calling Prophet Noble Drew Ali our prophet, because they don't understand. A lot of people are deaf, dumb, and blind, and they don't understand what's being done to them, what has been done to them, and why they're in the situation that they are. But once you obtain this level of understanding and knowledge and see what Prophet Noble Drew Ali brought to us and showed us, not only because man knows not by being told, he didn't just tell us, he showed us, he gave us a full blueprint and cross references. And when you go back and research and you see this to be true, you understand that the knowledge and wisdom that he had was divine. Nobody else did what he did to free the so-called African Americans, Negroes, colored folks, you know, whatever they choose to call our people, or people that look like us. So in Islam, like the Arabs, they will have a big problem with us calling Noble Drew Ali our prophet, because they believe that Muhammad was the last prophet. Well, that right there lets us know that they're not true to their studies, because Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he was a prophet indeed, and we do honor all prophets. We honor all prophets that come delivering the message of Allah. And no one should have a problem with that, because they've always been prophets, and there are probably going to be more to come, Islam. But the last prophet in these days and times that came to us is Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And yes, we honor him for his work and teachings, because what he brought us actually frees us from the bondage of the pale-skinned European. Islam?
Islam, yeah. If anybody has a problem with us and saying that the Prophet Noble Drew Ali is our prophet, send them to me, because especially if they're coming from the point of view of Islam, like Orthodox Islam. Um, in in Islam, there's a hierarchy of prophets. They have the Nabi, which are prophets who reveal prophecy from Allah, and then there's messengers, and they're called Rasul. And the Rasul is a prophet, but it has a higher purpose, because they also, in addition to prophesizing, they also give like revelations, like they bring laws. They bring Allah's commandments, which are laws. And so Nabis are not Rasuls, but all Rasuls are also Nabis, because in addition to prophesizing, they also give the law. And that's what the Prophet Muhammad did for Muslims all over the world. He brought the law. And for us, Prophet Noble Drew Ali established this as well. He brought us laws. He brought us back into civilization. He revealed this to us. And from the perspective of the Quran of Mecca, we're all supposed to have prophets. In the Quran, in Surah 14:4, it says, "We sent not a messenger, which is a Rasul, except to teach in the language of his own people in order to make things clear to them." So this is saying that Allah is saying that we send a messenger to each people speaking their own language to make things clear to them, to bring them back into alignment with Allah's will. And then also in 16:36 in the Quran of Mecca says, "For assuredly we sent amongst every people a messenger." Once again, that's that high up prophet, a messenger, with the command, serve Allah and eschew evil, which is what the prophet taught us, right? He's bringing us back in with our divine nature and giving us laws on how to conduct ourselves and how to be successful. And then also in the Quran, in Quran of Mecca again, in Surah 10, verse 47, and it says, "For every ummah," a ummah is a community or a nation. So, and for every ummah, there is a messenger. When their messenger comes, the matter will be judged between them with justice, and they will not be wrong. So there's three different portions, three different parts in the Quran where it says we send a messenger, a Rasul, which is, remember, the Rasul is the high up version of a prophet. That's the one who brings the prophecies and the laws of Allah. Every Rasul is also a Nabi. The Nabis reveal prophecies. There's several Nabis, not as many Rasuls. And I just read 3 portions in the Quran. That's all that I know of. There may be more. I think there is 1 or 2 more where it says, "And we send a messenger to every nation." So how can this be wrong? So, there's more that I could go in about that, but this can't be wrong, right? We send a messenger to every nation. It's in there several times. And that makes sense. We were suffering. And why wouldn't Allah do this for us? He did. And I yield the floor.
Islam, brother Lawson
Yeah,
L.
I
not
think
in the
Lawson L
group
dropped
right
out. Okay. Yeah, not sure what happened. We're going to go ahead and go forward to question 6. There's brother Lawson L. Islam, brother. You back?
Islam, yeah, I got kicked off. 1,000 Providence more.
Islam.
Are we on 6?
Yes.
Okay. Question 6. What is a prophet? A prophet is a thought of Allah manifested in the flesh. The Hebrew word for prophet means one who's inspired by God or Allah. That's why we cannot see him, but we have those thoughts manifested in the flesh, and we have those thoughts, and we actually create those thoughts and actions and put them into action, and that's where we can see God working with us as we go out and pursue our lives. Islam?
Islam, and if I could add to that, like with the prophet, and just saying that a prophet is a thought of Allah manifested in the flesh. We're all thoughts of Allah manifested in the flesh. The difference being with the prophet would be that they're compelled to adhere to and to share revelations from Allah, even if it's not to their benefit, even if it's going to make their life more difficult. It doesn't matter what the conditions are. Whereas we may hear that still small voice and ignore it all the time, know the right way to go or know what to do or what we should do, and we're not doing it. The prophet is not going to be able to do that. They're just going to adhere to it like I was saying, even if it's not going to make things easier for them, right? So they don't, I guess you could say that they have to be in alignment with the will of Allah. So they're going to, you know, to share Allah's revelations or whatever, no matter what. They're going to listen to that voice and obey, no matter what. Islam.
Islam. Question 7. What is the duty of a prophet? To save the nations from the wrath of Allah. The wrath of Allah is his divine punishment or chastisement, which is activated when the nations deviate from and violate his divine instructions. The sister mentioned that previously that we are Allah in the flesh, and we are supposed to and have seen how we're supposed to act. And when we deviate from that and not follow the prophet's instructions, Allah will reap the wrath on the people on the planet. Islam.
Islam. And one thing, if I can add to that, okay, we are living in the end times. People have been saying this for a while now. I think with this year, all of the different like crazy things that have been happening, a lot of people are joking and saying they know this is the end times, but this really is, this is it. And the end times could just mean the fall of so-called Western civilization, right? The rise of us in power, you know, or it could be even more devastating. And that's why Allah sent a prophet to us at this time. Those 3 verses that just read from the Quran, all saying the same message, right? We fell from our own ways. We fell from our divine nature. We're not just like this by nature. This isn't how we've always been, where you have this problem where, you know, mothers raising sons by themselves, and a lot of the things that we've fallen to as a whole with our community, where there's, you know, anything goes. There's no telling what our people will do, right? Murder, I mean, drugs, anything goes. And so we've fallen from our divine nature, and then we've even to the point where we're going along with a label that was created just to disconnect us from who we truly are, and we're going along with it, even though it's been a long time now. We're still going along with it. So these things that we suffer are for our own doing, and we can correct this overnight just by returning to our divine nature and being who we truly are, because it's ordained. This is what time it is. It's time for us to rise. All right. And so the prophet was sent to remind us and to show the way, literally to lead the way by example. All right. And that's why we adhere to. That's what we're teaching now. Islam, I yield the floor.
Islam, if I may add to that, what he said, like, you know, we've been hearing this my whole life. I've been hearing we're living in the end, you know, it's the end times. And chapter 1, the first verse in chapter 1 in our Holy Quran, the Moorish Science Temple of America, says, time never was when man was not. That means there's no beginning, there's no end, you know. There's no like, this is the end time. Like there's nothing that the Europeans can do, and there's nothing that no one on this planet can do to just end it all for everyone. No matter what, we've always been here and we're always going to be here. Islam. Our energy never dies.
Islam. Anyone else, or we'll go to question 8. Question 8. Who is the founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America? Noble Drew Ali. And the Prophet organized the Moorish Science Temple of America to lead us to save humanity. You know, this is an organization that he put together from a message from Allah, and there's no other organization like this that I'm aware of. Islam.
Yeah, like with the Moorish Science Temple of America, you know, part of our religion is correcting the situation that we're in, and we're protected. It's protected by the Second Amendment, right?
Freedom of
Freedom of
religion.
religion.
Yeah.
And so part of our religion is correcting our status, which you hear some people say, right? And everything else that comes along with that. And so that's really important. So anyone who doesn't understand that or thinks like, oh, I'm sick of religion or anything like that, you don't even understand. That's where our power lies. That's where our government lies, right? That's where our protection is in returning to your divine rights. Okay, so you know, it's extremely important. And then also part of our religion is taking care of all of the things that afflict us, including our economic plight, our, you know, political slavery, the conditions that we're in, right? So addressing all of that is part of our religion. So it's very powerful. Islam, I yield the floor.
Islam. I just looked up the word on the etymology of religion. It says century 1200, state of life bound by monastic vows, also conduct indicating a belief in a divine power. And I'll go to monastic. I don't know what that means. Monastic meanings pertaining to or characteristic of a religious recluse. So I hear monotheistic, belief in many gods, but many gods is what kind of sets the tone of like the 7 Elohim. We give thanks and honors to the 7 Elohim, for making things, manifest in Islam. And I just wanted to point that out because, it's just, we're realigning, like we're coming back to the real ways of how we're supposed to be. And I always think about point zero, the ground zero or whatever. Point zero is where we, need to return the base of foundation, how we've, always been, organizing things or realigning things.
Islam. I'm glad you shared that too, the definition for religion. Another one I wanted to add to that is a pursuit or interest to which someone ascribes supreme importance. All right, and our religion is Islamism. So these pursuits, this interest that we ascribe supreme importance to, that fits everything that we just described, returning ourselves back to power and back to our divine nature. All right. And then another thing, when you look into the etymology of religion, is when you look at religio from Latin, we're saying that that's an obligation or a bond. It was probably derived from the verb religar, which means tie back, right? So we're returning back to our divine rights. All right. Or we're re-obligating ourselves. We're bonding ourselves back to our divine nature. Islam?
I got a question for that. So like, as far as how, we're a theocratic nation. So being that we're theocratic, like how does, like, I guess my whole idea is just, letting people know, like, exactly, how we are structured in Islam as a religion. Peace.
Islam. So for us, I guess one way that you could explain would be the way that our society is set up is actually how most indigenous societies are set up in the past and some still in the present. And then of course how most governments would be set up in Islamic countries as well. It would be of God, right? So in most indigenous societies, like they don't really have this separation of church and state. The leaders would be of the priesthood. And with us, the structure of the Moorish Science Temple of America is actually based off of ancient societies. This is how ancient Egypt was set up. They had a theocratic monarchy. They had a pharaoh who was a representative of God on earth. And the pharaoh really wasn't ruling things. Really, the pharaoh had a council of priests. We have divine ministers. They have a council of priests, and the priests are actually the ones that are advising or maybe even telling the pharaoh what to do. And it was the same way over here in the Americas, like the ancient Olmec people or the ancient Mayans. Same way, they had a leader who is a representative of God on earth, and they have priests, the priest class. Matter of fact, in ancient Egypt, one of the terms that they had was Moors or Moro, and that was for the priest of Anu. All right, and this was for the priesthood class, and these were the rulers. All right, and so since we're returning to it, because Egypt was actually a worldwide civilization at one point, and also Egypt, even though the name may have changed throughout time, but the society that existed before Egypt, you could just call it Egypt too. Meaning you could just say the ancient Atlantis was Egypt as well. Why? Because Egypt was based off of that. They were carrying on the remnants of the society that existed before it. And they had a theocratic government, right? Where you're connected to Allah, where you have representatives of Allah governing, okay, priests. And so we're returning to that way. We got away from it. We forgot about it. Somebody came along and took advantage of the fact that we were forgetting, that we were in amnesia. And now, through the grace of Allah, we're returning to it. The prophet came from amongst us in North Carolina and somehow reconnected us to it. Somehow he had the insight to reconnect us back to that. Okay? And so by us returning to a society, a government that is connected, to our religion, where it's all one. This is something that's actually universal. This is how, the true indigenous people are, probably all over the universe, but definitely in this world, in the past, and still even in the present. There is no separation. And when we have things like that, then we don't have some of the corruption that comes along later on. Like some of the things that are sanctioned as okay, as acceptable in our society are bad for all of us. They're not good. You can't have that if our society is based off of Allah and Allah's will, right? There's certain things we can't eat, some things we can't do. We can't pollute the earth. No, you can't have pedophilia and all these horrible things. No, it won't even be considered that it's okay, that it's acceptable. It wouldn't even be an option, right? Because that's out of tune with divine will. And so our society is based off of that. And that keeps us in alignment, right? That keeps us on the straight and narrow path. Islam?
Islam, brother. Well said. Question 9. What year was the Moorish Science Temple of America founded? 1913. I do have a question, brother.
Islam.
1913, when the Prophet created our nation state, if I'm not corrected, isn't that the first nation state that is a theocratic um, government? And then I think it was either 1914 or 15 that the Vatican did the same thing, Islam?
Islam. I don't have the exact year on the Vatican. With us, for the year 1913, that's the year that the Prophet actually started on this mission in Newark, New Jersey, or Newark, New Jerusalem, where he started to teach this. He was in a building that some people say was called the Canaanite Temple, where he started to teach this message and was on this mission, where he actually started the Moorish Divine and National Movement. But it wasn't actually incorporated um, as a body politic until 1928, and that would be when he changed the structure a couple times. He incorporated it in 1926 as a civic organization, and later on, he wound up going to Cuba, representing us as a head of state. He met at the Pan American Conference with different diplomats from all over the Americas, including the United States government. And after he came back, he changed it to a religious organization. And when he did that in Illinois, he established a body politic. And then I'll pull up this definition for body politic for everyone, just so you can see why that matters. So when he changed it to a body politic, he actually set up a nation. In combination, now if he had just done this by itself, it would have just been a religious group. It would have been like, a church or something like that. But establishing this body politic, in addition with the moves that he made, like representing us as a head of state, having actual temples all over the country. They had several temples from coast to coast, having thousands of members, having an economy, having their own businesses, grocery stores and things like that. They had their own self-sustaining economy. They could trade with other nations. All of these things, in addition with this corporate filing that he made, announced to the world that this was a nation state. All right. And so legally, the structure of the Moorish Science Temple of America, yeah, it's a body politic. And as you see here, a body politic is the term is particularly appropriate to a public corporation invested with powers and duties of government. And it is often used in a rather loose way to designate the state or nation or sovereign power of the government of a country. Okay. And so that's not saying like, oh, we don't have to abide by the laws and all that. No, this is just saying that we do have a nation. We are people, just like people from Palestine, people from all of these other places, even though the people in Palestine don't have a country called Palestine anymore. They reside in where? In Israel. But they're a nation and they have to be dealt with like a nation. You can't just run over them. There's people that are living in Yemen who are called undesirables, and they're in the same situation as us. They get ran over. They're dark-skinned people too, like us, and they're just called undesirables. They don't really know their history, don't really know necessarily where they come from, whereas everyone else has a national line of descent. Everyone else knows who they are, and it matters. You do need to have someone who can represent you, or people that can represent you to the family of nations. Whether we're talking about the UN or whatever, you have to have that. It doesn't matter if you're a tribe in the Amazon. They know this because they know who they are. And we might think they're just some uncivilized people, but no, they're not. They get it. And that's why they can't just run over them as well. They'll have to deal with them in that matter, and they'll have a representative that will go to the UN and speak on their people and let them know how the people are trying to destroy their home and it's wrong. And I'm just saying this to say that there's people in Yemen who are in the same situation as us, and they're called undesirables. But yet we have people in Palestine, and even though they have conflicts with Israelis, they live in Israel because that was their land. And even though they don't have their own state of Palestine, they're a people and they're a nation, and they're real and legit. And they're as far as the question though about the Vatican, I don't know just off the top of my head when the Vatican was formed. I just know that it was established around the same time as far as being incorporated in the structure that it's in now in the present day. It was formed around this time.
Islam's Sheikh, I just looked that up. It was established in 1929.
So the year after. Okay, so I've heard more
Correct.
say that, but we can't go off of what we're told, what we hear. So the next year, it was incorporated then. The Vatican's actually way older than that, but they were looking at what the prophet did, and they took advantage of that, and they established their state, and they're the only ones. It's only the Moorish Science Temple of America and the Vatican. That's it. These are the only theocratic, monarchies, the only societies that are set up like this in this manner.
Islam, the thing that I think distinguishes us is that the Vatican does have territory. We need to establish our territory here in America. Islam?
And we have that as well. The prophet lined this out for us. It's in our Quran in chapter 47. North, South, and Central America and the adjoining islands, the Atlantis Islands. So that's the Caribbean, North, South, and Central America. This is all ours. All of the indigenous people here are Asiatics, right? So we have all of this territory. Okay, so it's also a great unifying factor as well. And it's something that we haven't taken advantage of. That's the only difference. We have to move as a collective, but the time is right because people all over are waking up to this knowledge. Nobody's teaching this. We're not learning this growing up. Most of us, our parents didn't know this. So people are waking up. Every now and then you'll see someone with the fez on, and there's no reason on earth why they should be doing that. This is not taught in the mainstream. They do everything that they can to keep this out of the mainstream because this is where our salvation lies. Right? By you putting that fez on, you're putting your crown back on. People are wearing this in secret. Rulers of the world are wearing this in secret. And then that seat of power is our capital, Casablanca. That's ours. Right? So all symbolically, this is us. And there have to be people who know that who we truly are because they're pretending to be us. So this is not being taught, and we still have people from all walks of life, rich and poor, Asiatic, who are waking up every day, who are coming into this knowledge that we're Moors. So it's prophecy. It's coming to pass right here and now. And so the prophet set up the society for us, and it's set up in perpetuity. It cannot be destroyed. Even if membership falls down to 1, it can't be destroyed. It's just waiting for us to come in and learn what it means so that we know our society inside and out and then enact it because we have everything that we need to save ourselves. Islam.
Question 10. Where was the Moorish Science Temple established? Newark, New Jersey. I just want to add that I grew up 20 minutes from Newark. and I knew nothing about the Moorish Science Temple. As a child, as a teenager, even as a college student. It came later in life. That's how thorough the secret is, keeping it from our young people. Islam.
Islam, I agree as well. I grew up on the south side of Chicago, and it's like that's where majority of the temples were. And literally on 38th in Indiana, my auntie lived on 38th in Michigan, the block over. It was literally one block, like literally you can see one block over, and never really knew Islam.
Islam, well, Allah's the best knower. We're here now, and from what you brothers just said, from my own experience, there's no reason for us to be here right now and to be on this path other than it was ordained. It was preordained. It's prophecy. Because this wasn't taught to us. There's no resources being put behind this. This definitely is not taught in the mainstream media, not taught in the schools, unless we're teaching it. All right. So just the fact that we're here and there's other brothers and sisters out, in the streets that are learning this and are coming towards this direction means that it's time. It's something within our DNA that's waking up. Islam.
Any further comments? That will conclude 1 through 10 of the Moorish questionnaire. Anyone else? Islam, I yield the floor. Sheikh.
All right, Islam. Thank you, brother. Does anyone else have any questions in general? Anything you want to ask or about what we're doing here? Okay. There's no questions. I want to announce without further ado, we're going to go into the closing of the meeting. Brother Jackson Bey, would you please read the additional laws?
Islam, praise Allah. Additional laws for the Moorish Americans by the Prophet Noble Jew Ali. Act 1, Grand Sheiks and governors and heads of all temples or businesses. Each said temple must be approved by the Prophet Noble Jew Ali. Before acting upon by any member, let it be finance, property, or any line of life that will cause the support of any group of members. Any former officer that violates these laws is subject to be removed from office under heavy restrictions, etc., by the Prophet or the Grand Sheik. Act 2, all members are to attend their added meetings and their public meetings properly. If a member is found standing around on their meeting period, shall be fined 50 cents on the first case, and on the second will be fined $1, which will go on your emergency fund. If a member is working, his monthly dues must be paid, and if he has money in the bank, he must subscribe for as much as he is able to the Moorish Uplifting Fund, because it takes finance to uplift the nation. Act 3, it is the lawful and divine duty of every good member, if he is able to give finance, to aid me in saving the nation. And if he does not, he is an enemy to the cause of uplifting his own people, and justice must catch you. Let it be he or she according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, as I have the power invested in my hand, and I will have to enforce the law in order to save the nation. Act 4, all members while up making public speeches must not use any assertion against the American flag or speak radically against the church or any member of any organized group, because we are to teach love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Act 5, all members must promptly attend their meetings and send their children to Sunday school, and the teacher must confirm himself to the questionnaire, and let every member exercise his 5 senses who is able to do so, because out of your Sunday school comes the guidance of the nation. Act 6, with us, all members must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are part and parcel of this said government, and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865, during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now, and all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained Noble Drew Ali, the prophet, to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Act 7. All members must promptly attend their meetings and become part and parcel of all uplifting acts of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Members must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Then you are entitled to the name of faithful. Husband, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband and take care of your children and look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey father and mother and be industrious and become part of the uplifting of fallen humanity. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure with love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant is from your holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, through the guidance of his father God Allah. Islam, Islam, Islamism.
Islamism. All right. Brother Douglas L is going to read the divine warning, and then Brother Cole Bay will read the 3 writs of the prophet. Speak up. A divine warning by the prophet for the nations. The citizens of all free national governments, according to their national constitution, are all of one family bearing one free national name. Those who fail to recognize the free national name of their constitutional government are classed as undesirables and are subjected to all inferior names and abuses and mistreatments that the citizens card to bestow upon them. And it is a sin for any group of people to violate the national constitutional law of a free national government and cling to the names and the principles that allude to slavery. I, the prophet, was prepared by the great God Allah to warn my people to repent from their sinful ways and go back to that state of mind to their forefathers, divine and national principles, that they will be law-abided and receive their divine right as citizens, according to the free national constitution that was prepared for all free national beings. They are to claim their own free national name religion. There is but one issue for them to recognize by their government and the earth, and it comes only through the connection of the Moorish divine national movement, which is incorporated in this government and recognized by all other nations of the world. And though they and their children can receive their divine rights unmolested by other citizens, that they can cast a free national ballot at the polls under the free national constitution of the state's government and not under granted privilege has been the existence conditions for many generations. You who doubt whether I, the prophet, and my principles are right for the redemption of my people, go to that known law in the city hall and amongst the officials in our government, and ask them under an intelligent tone, and they will be glad to render you a favorable reply. For they are glad to see me bring you out of the darkness into the light. Money doesn't make the man. It is the free national standards and power that make a man in a nation. The wealth of all national governments, gold and silver and commerce belong to the citizens alone. Without your national citizenship by name and principles, you have no true wealth, and I am hereby calling on all true citizens and that stand for national free government and the enforcement of the Constitution to help me in a great missionary work. Because I need all support from all true American citizens in the United States of America. Help me to save my people who have fallen from the constitutional law of government. I am depending on your support to get them back to the constitutional fold again, and they will learn to love instead of hate, and will live according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice,
supporting our free national Constitution of the United States of America. I love my people and I desire their unity and mind back to their own national and divine standards, because day by day they've been violating the national and constitutional laws of their government by claiming names and principles that are unconstitutional. If Italians, Greek, English, Chinese, Japanese, Turks, and Arabians are forced to proclaim their free national name and religion before the constitutional government of the United States of America, it is no more than right that the law should be enforced upon all American citizens alike. In all other governments, when a man is born and raised there and asks for his national decent name and he fails to give it, he is misused, imprisoned, or exiled. Any group of people that fails to answer up to the constitutional standards of law by name and principle because to be a citizen of any government, you must claim your national decent name. Because they place their trust upon issues and names formed by their forefathers. The word Negro deludes in the Latin language the word nigger, the same as the word colored, deludes to any that is painted, varnished, and dyed. And every nation must bear a national decent name of their forefathers, because by honoring thy mothers and fathers, your days will be lengthened upon this earth. These names have never been recognized by any true American citizens of this day. But your free national name, you are known and recognized by all nations of the earth that are recognized by said national government in which they live. The 14th and 15th Amendment brought to the North and South in unit, placing the Southerners who were at that time without power with the constitutional body of power. And that time, 1865, the free national constitutional law that was enforced since 1774 declares all men equal and free. And if all men are declared equal by the free national constitution to be free and equal, since the constitution has never been changed, there is no need for application of the 14th and 15th Amendments for the salvation of our people and citizens. So there isn't but one supreme issue for my people to use to redeem that which was lost, and that is thought about the statements, then the lion and the lamb can lie down together in yonder hills, and neither will be harmed, because love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice will reign in this land. In those days, the United States will be one of the greatest civilized and prosperous governments of the world. But if the above principles are not carried out by the citizens and my people in this government, the worst is yet to come, because the great God of the universe is not pleased with the works that are being performed in North America by the people, and this great sin must be removed from the land to save it from enormous earthquakes, disease. And I, the prophet, do hereby believe that this administration of the government, being more wisely prepared by more genius citizens that believe in their free national constitution and laws, and to help such classes of citizens, I, the prophet, truly believe that my people will find the true and divine way of their forefathers. And I learned to stop serving carnal customs and mere ideas of a man that have never done them any good, but have always harmed them. So I, the prophet, am hereby calling aloud with a divine plea of all true American citizens to help me remove this great sin which has been committed and being practiced by the people in the United States of America, because they know it's not the true and divine way, and without understanding, they have fallen from the true light into utter darkness of sin. And there is not a nation on earth today that will recognize them socially, religiously, politically, or economically. In their presence condition of their endeavorment in which they themselves try to force upon a civilized world, they will not refrain from their sinful way of action, and their deeds have brought Jim Crowism segregation, and everything that brings harm to human beings on earth. And they fought the Southerners for all these great misuses. But I have traveled in the South and have examined conditions there. And it is the work of my people continuously practicing the things which bring dishonor, disgrace, and disrespect to any nation that lives in the life. And I am hereby calling on all true American citizens for moral support and finance to help me in my great missionary work to bring my people out of the darkness into marvelous light. From the Prophet. From the Moorish Guide, April 1935.
Islam. All right, Brother Kobe, would you please read the writ to the Prophet? Islam, Brother Kobe, you still there?
Islam.
All right, Islam, brother.
Arise and give praise to the Prophet. Arise and give praise to the great God Allah. Arise and give praise to all Muslims in attendance. Prophet warns all Muslims to be read in every meeting. I hereby inform all members that they must end all radical speeches while at work, in their homes, and on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be a severe consequence. We offer love, truth, peace, freedom take its course. Any member or groups of members who have malicious feelings towards the temple or the prophet or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement will receive their rewards from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the Prophet, found you. It is a holy and divine movement founded by the Prophet Noble Jew Ali, and the Prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The Prophet, therefore, is sending out a divine plea to all Moorish Americans. They do their part in protecting the Prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the Prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Peace, Noble Jew Ali. To be proclaimed at every meeting. Islam, I am glad to know I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy about me and the movement now by the same people of our side of the nation that claim that I was a joke and unreal. But now since they found out by the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they are working every scheme that they can to disqualify me so they may take charge of the situation. I have notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds. The ones that pay their divine respects to me and the movement will be remembered. That is why I'm calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moors movement. I need finance, and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finances so badly as I do at present, so I may as I do at present, so I can shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being head. It has been proven by my works, which I have performed in the past few years. Prophet, Noble Jew Ali. To the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Islam. This is instructions from your prophet, Noble Jew Ali. Be faithful unto your forefather divine and national creed, that you will be blessed for your good works, your good deeds that you sow in the flesh. Allah is the one that judges the world, and his judgment is on now, but the weak can comprehend it not. The end of times are drawing near, so says Allah to his divine prophet, I, Noble Jew Ali, and that is why many hearts have turned to stone. Many have eyes to see, but cannot see, ears to hear, but cannot hear. At least they will be confounded of their sins. These are the trying hours now, dear Moors, and every evil spirit is moving, and they are trying every weak mind to overthrow and drag out the true foundation that has been laid, and to cause confusion in the minds of the ones that do believe. But if you have the true love of Allah and the spirit of your forefathers, you fear not what you hear or see,
but will sacrifice your utmost of your very life to protect your movement and your profit. Watch your enemies, dear Moors. Your enemies are the ones that speak against your prophet and ridicule him to the very lowest, and the ones that speak against your divine and national principles in your temples. Act accordingly, and Allah will bless you for your good work. Peace, your divine prophet, Noble Jew Ali. Islam, Islam, Islamism.
Islamism. All right, thank you, brother. Last call. If anybody has any closing statements or questions.
Islam, you mentioned earlier about the numerology of Negro and slave, and the number is 59, and they both equal 59. Islam.
All right, Islam. Thanks for that clarification. That's powerful too. That's a spell, and the prophet came to get us out of that spell, and this is the only salvation. All right. So unless somebody else has something they want to add, we're gonna go ahead and go into the closing. All right. All meetings are to be opened and closed promptly according to the Circle 7 in love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Please rise for the closing prayer. Stand and face the east. We put our heels together, feet in a V formation, 45-degree angle. Hold our right and left hands up perpendicular. Hold 2 fingers up on the right and 5 fingers up on the left. And you do not need to repeat after us.
Allah, bind our hearts and minds back to our ancient forefathers, divine creed and principles. We ask this in thy holy name and the 7 Elohim. Amen.
Amen. Islam, Islam, Islamism. All right, peace and love, Moors. Thank you all for coming in.
Islam, happy
Peace.
Sunday, Morris. Peace and love.
Islam, peace and love.
Peace and
Islam,
love.
Lord.
Love.
Peace and love.
Peace and love.
Have a great week.